Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and this is the big one. This is the big one that we were waiting for, the final tuning pass before the Mythic Raid comes out. The final, well, not final tuning pass, but one of the major tuning passes for PvP, specifically in this one. And this is kind of potentially an apocalypse world-ending patch for some classes in the game, as far as maybe your viability and your Covenant choice, and potentially re-rolling. So it's a very important update. I'm going to go over all the changes, talk about them, my thoughts on what's a good idea to do after this point, and my concerns overall. So starting off right off the bat, Unholy Death Knight getting another mastery nerf. This is again PvE focused, however it does affect you in PvP, so your dots and your pets are going to be doing less damage. This is likely the final tuning pass for PvE, I would imagine, but it did allow you to avoid some nerfs in PvP, so you can at least be thankful for that. And I don't think it's going to be a huge impact in PvP specifically, and in PvE you're still pretty much a god of AoE, so not a big deal I think for Unholy DK overall, but a nerf nonetheless. For Druid, they did ultimately nerf the balance of all things legendary. It is now only going to increase your critical strike chance by 40%, down from 50, but decaying at a slightly lower margin. I think that this was a conservative nerf. I don't think this is going to delete it from the game. I'm still going to be playing with it myself on the reset, and I'll let you know if I think that it's completely unviable. But the way that it was nerfed and decaying slower means that your damage on the singular target is going to be a little bit lower in terms of spikiness, but you may feel some more overall potential from it, so I'm curious to see how it plays out. They're also nerfing Starfall. This is PvE obviously focused. Maybe random battlegrounds were in consideration for this as well, but in PvP competitive formats, Starfall was an invisible button. It's a fluff button. You can't pull targets out of stealth anymore. It lost all of its utility, and it doesn't do any damage on a single target or a small group of players, and even on a massive group of players, the damage it does is negligible. So in PvE, you're going to be unhappy about this. In PvP, you're not going to worry about it. It was already a button you didn't press. For Marksmanship Hunter, they went the route of the 5% reduction. This is in the game overall. I think this again was a conservative change, affecting them in PvE and PvP appropriately. I think it was a fair way to go about it in terms of its nerfing, and it's going to provide at least a still decent pace for Marksmanship Hunter. Mages, your Arcane Harmony legendary is now no longer stacking to 15, so you're not going to get a big, massive barrage that absolutely KOs people, but the Execute Arcane Barrage legendary is still likely to be a top contender for Arcane specifically, and nothing massive towards Arcane in that regard. For Monk, your Phalanx Stomp ability now correctly fades from view for friendly players other than the casting Monk. Not a big deal. It resolved an issue that would cause Summon Jade Statue talent from casting Soothing Mist, so apparently a bug for the Jade statues. So Mistweaver bug fixes. Feels good, man. Rogue, now this is where we get to the apocalypse, potentially world-ending changes specifically for PvP on Subtlety Rogue. And with this one, you are going to be seeing the conduit that they nerfed previously nerfed again. So it's now down to 50% reduction, up from 30. So it's cut in half in terms of its overall damage. And now Echoing Reprimand's initial damage is also reduced on top of that by 50%. Echoing Reprimand basically deleted from the game. However, at the same time, it was so high that I don't know why you would have played any other Covenant in PvP anyways. So it's not that I don't think that this nerf was warranted or is overly too much. It's basically that I'm worried that these abilities, these Covenant abilities, are much like Corruption was when Corruption came out, where everybody was dying really fast. The game looked fast-paced. I mean, people remember Echoing Stars tapping people out of the arena. This had very similar vibes to that, other than it was in control of the player. But when that's out of the game, what happens? That's my big concern. Is this a fair nerf to the Covenant that every rogue was playing no matter what, and rogue killed you way too fast in a stun? Yeah, 100%. But what happens when that's gone? Are people still going to die? That's the main concern, because that was a big nerf, and it gets even bigger than that for Rogue. Assassination, they're targeting the Night Stalker talent. This is likely because of the Vanished legendary on top of the 100% crit legendary, scaling your damage out of control paired up, so it makes sense. I'm glad they were aware of Assassination's damage in PvP as well, with Envenom potentially hitting too hard. And then for Subtlety, more nerfs. Cold Blood is now affected by versatility. I think this is more of like a a bug fix than anything for Cold Blood. The fact that it wasn't affected by versatility, but that's a pretty significant nerf considering everyone is stacking versatility and you weren't affected by a defensive stat in the game. Also, the Night Stalker talent for Subtlety is going to be nerfed, while Shadowlands is active down to 8% from 12%, so 4% nerf to damage there. And your Shadow Blades is also going to be nerfed 10%, down from 40. So it's not looking amazing for Subtlety Rogue here. Big concerns. You still have an amazing kit. You have a ton of crowd control and a ton of setup. But without that damage, do you have enough damage for lethal? Is it going back to where it was in BFA, where it was just that niche sub-rogue pick and Asa takes over? Because Asa, I think, is still in a solid position overall. And I'll talk more about where do all the classes sit after these changes when we get through all of them. But sub-rogue did get hit hard. Did it deserve to get hit hard? Yes. But what happens next? Elemental, a little bit of a legendary quality of life. So your Earthquake buff is going to be lasting 10 seconds longer. Your Echoes of Great Sundering, legendary. And then this is the biggest change overall to the game, other than Sub-Rogue completely getting obliterated. But and it might be low-key one that you're not really paying attention to, but this was the big change to PvP specifically. With regional restarts, combat meditation, Pelagos Soulbind for Kyrian. The mastery value will be reduced by 50% in PvP, but the duration will be increased by 50% in PvP. So basically, when I tried this on my Rep Paladin and I activated Divine Toll, which grants me my mastery, before this nerf, I would get about 16 or 17% mastery, or so 17% more damage when I activated it. That's cut in half. So now that's down to 8, can't do math, 8.5-ish % increase in damage. That's a big nerf. And that's Boomkins playing Kyrian. This is Warrior playing Kyrian. This is Ret playing Kyrian. Rogue playing Kyrian on top of these Rogue nerfs. Hunter playing Kyrian. Fire Mage playing Kyrian. This Mastery nerf was huge. This was the biggest one. And this is where I felt like when I really looked at this Mastery buff on Pelagos was kind of borderline corruption level damage from BFA. Not as dramatic, but I don't know, pretty close in some situations. So once that's gone, what happens to those classes? Can those classes still kill a target without that big spike of damage? Because my own personal experience from playing, and I play a bunch of different comps, a bunch of different classes with a bunch of variety of skill levels, is that games are getting longer and longer, even without changes being made. Outside of these things like Subtlety Rogue killing you in 1 second, the games are actually not fast. They're actually slow. There's some healers like Resto Shaman who aren't running out of mana at the moment. But I have been noticing game length increasing over time, even playing with returning players who haven't played for a long time, or playing against really top level players, even with returning players on my side who haven't played very long, having pretty excessively long games without these nerfs being applied. So I am very worried that we're going back to a state where the game is going to be heavily revolving around dampening. Also, if you pick the Kyrian Covenant for PvP after these changes, if you're a Fire Mage, probably don't want to be anymore. If you're a Boomkin, you probably still do. Like I'm just talking about the classes specifically that get hit hardest with this. As Boomkin, you still want to be because Kindred Spirits is still 15% more damage when you activate it. But Warrior, maybe not. Venthyr, Night Fae. Did Bajira end up picking the best Covenant with Night Fae? I mean, the thing hits pretty hard. And the Seed Soulbind from Night Fae is getting more and more playthrough as well, where when you die, you turn into a seed and the seed has to be killed. That's getting more and more play. The Warriors, the Hunters probably still stuck with it because Resonating Arrow lets you shoot through walls, but now you're not getting what is a 70% damage increase while being able to shoot through walls at the same time anymore, which could dramatically affect you. Rogue is, you're without a home. I don't know what you're going to do as a rogue. Because all the other Covenant abilities are kind of just, but this one was such a standout. It had to be nerfed, right? So, but where is your home? I've made videos talking about Sub Rogue and the Covenants and what I thought. So I think Night Fae is still maybe a good option to go to. It seems like there's no way, right, that you're going to play Kyrian Rogue after this. They nerfed the Conduit by half. They nerfed its base damage by half. They nerfed its mastery value by half when you activate it. I feel like there's got to be no way, right? Something else has got to be better. I'm pretty worried for Subtlety Rogues. Another change also to take into account that may be missed is that 2v2 due to the relatively increased fast pace of PvP combat in Shadowlands. I should say that this might, due to the relatively increased deceiving pace of PvP combat in Shadowlands, these things here, when they're gone, I don't necessarily think it's going to be that fast. Dampening will no longer start at 20% in 2v2. Dampening will start immediately, but not at 20%. So it's going to slow down 2v2. This is going to make healer DPS better in 2s for sure, and double DPS with hybrids better. And that's something that we're not even talking about in this. I think because the burst damage was so high, we were just ignoring hybrid healing or healing in general. It was much more, all the concern was, oh my God, things are dying too fast, which fair enough, right? Fair enough. Things are dying too fast. Now that's been dealt with. The stuff that was causing people to die too fast is being dealt with. The things that aren't getting touched though are elemental shaman. Elemental shamans are very happy about all of this. You are still going to absolutely KO people with Stormkeeper and Lava Burst damage. None of this affects you because Kyrian was not picked for PvP. You're going to have no problems. Ellie's very happy. Shadow Priest, you are very happy as well. You were playing Vent there. Nothing got touched. Mind Games is still tapping people. You're very happy. Demon Hunter, I feel like you're also pretty happy with this. You got a buff earlier on in my last video, and with your Night Fae Covenant, you have insane burst damage. So what's going to happen is these things that were one-shotting people that were addressed are no longer a problem, but the next line of things that were one-shotting people are going to be a problem. And will those one-shots get reduced? And then when those one-shots are removed, what is the state of the game? That's the big deal right here. So after these changes on Tuesday, sure, we're going to be hunky-dory happy days as Ellie Shamans, Shadow Priests, and Demon Hunters, because everything else got nerfed pretty heavily, and some people are trying to find a new Covenant home at this point after the apocalypse. But you're probably next on the chopping block if the main focus is removing these big one-shots. And I'm hoping what they end up doing, if this happens, is address the hybrid healing, reduce the hybrid healing, by a lot. Rep Paladins, Enhanced, Feral, reduce the hybrid healing. I mean, Enhanced didn't get touched here either. They're going to be pretty happy about this as well. They've got massive damage. Windwalker, to some degree, going to be happy with these changes too. If you were not running Kyrian Windwalker, you're going to be happy about these. So there's a lot of one-shots still in the game that are going to absolutely KO people, which, again, deceivingly make the game look fast-paced. But when those get targeted, I don't think it's going to be that fast. I think the game is actually pretty slow. Hybrid healing is going to need to be addressed at that point. And then what I think needs to happen is the trinket bonus gets increased, where your versatility on your damage is higher. But I'm worried if you increase the damage on the heal and the healing, that hybrid healing gets buffed from it too, and that's going to be a problem. But so we got big apocalypse. And summary is that moving forward, I think that these targeted the right things. These are the things that are killing people too fast. Maybe it's a bit excessive on Sub Rogue. Cutting a conduit in half, cutting the ability in half, cutting the mastery in half for Sub Rogue specifically. But Sub Rogue's kit specifically will still allow it in a good player's hands to be viable. But it did seem pretty heavy hit here out of everything. And then there were some specs that didn't get touched, and they do just as much big burst damage as Sub Rogue was. So we're just going to see a string of whack-a-mole, I think, at this point. And you better just duck for cover. If you're a spec out there and you know you can kill people fast, go into a bunker. You got to dodge the apocalypse, because I'm really worried. So, not to say that I don't think it can be fixed. I think that the damage has been deceivingly high from these things, much like corruption was, and when it was removed, the game became very slow. So hopefully hybrid healing is addressed in the future. Overall sustained damage is going to be increased in the future, assuming that they continue this trend of targeting these outliers that are doing very high damage conditions in PvP specifically. So aside from that, thank you very much for watching the video. I know this is an important one for everybody. I wanted to get out there, get it, and give my thoughts on it as soon as possible moving forward. Basically on Tuesday, keep playing the same. Just keep playing the same. Again, this is a prediction on my part based on how I've seen things going. I could be completely wrong. I will be happily wrong if the game is still fast and exciting. And not just for the outlier specs that avoided the nerf in this specifically. I'm still going to be playing the balance of all things legendary. I'm still going to be going through with everything that I've picked, and I think you should as well, at least for a few days. And then if it feels like, yep, Kyrian, not my dig anymore, then make the change. Don't just immediately throw everything over and get out of there. Play out through the changes. We'll see what happens. Just wanted to give you my thoughts, give you a heads up on what's happening. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.